ho, ho! Welcome to TV Guys in our Christmas episode, part one. I am Matt.
I'm Brian.
And it is the week before Christmas. It is right smack dab in the middle of Hanukkah. I don't know when Kwanzaa is, but that's sometime around now. So we've got all the holidays covered, but we are talking about Christmas shows, my friend.
This would have been a good day for me to come in dressed as Santa Claus, but...
Nope, you blew that one way early.
That's what she said.
Oh, gosh. Our Office one is done. Hey, if you have not checked it out, Brian and I, we both agree. We loved our top 3 Office moments episode. If you haven't watched that or listened to that, go check it out. It is on right now.
It is. I think it's one of our best episodes yet, unless this is our best episode yet.
And it is the best episode yet, correct.
Yes. We're less than a minute in, and it's already the best.
We had some people agree with us. Pretty much, let's see, Andrew, he commented about one of the top moments. So if you haven't listened to it now, turn it off. Go listen to that one first. We're going to ruin what those are. Mm-hmm. Andrew commented that he also enjoyed Pam and Jim's wedding, and your sister commented that she also enjoyed the fire.
Yeah. She also commented that the whole episode in general made her laugh.
Yeah, it was a good episode. That was one of those episodes that is just like they kept topping it because it's like it had to be so big. Following the Super Bowl, they had to do some crazy great episode. And that was, if you guys remember, not only did it have like Dwight's suspension and all that stuff, but that was also wasn't that the roast episode too? Didn't it end with that? Michael Scott roast?
I think
what was
so.
it at the end? Yeah, because Dwight needed people to sign in, and he was having them sign in.
Oh, that's right, and he finally got Phyllis to sign. Was the last one.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it was the roast, which is that was a great moment. I love Michael's getting roasted, but I also love his roasts at the end.
Yeah, Andy Cornell called, said you suck, and you're gayer than Oscar.
Boom, roasted. All right. Well, we are going to talk about some really good TV today. We could not figure out a top 3 Christmas episodes list, so we had to do 2 of them. We have a top 6 Christmas episodes. We're going to hit our number 6, 5, and 4 today, and then next week we're going to talk about 3, 2, and 1. And Brian and I, we both said beforehand, we have got even on our list, one of our picks is from a show we haven't even talked about yet.
Nope. Also, I'm just going to rip off a Band-Aid right here. At least in this episode, I'm not bringing up any Office Christmas episodes.
Yep, not yet for me. I mean, let's be honest. It's going to be on my list. It's in the top 3.
Well, it's hard because there's one specific Office Christmas episode that I think I'm going to leave off my list just because I know it's going to be on your list. But if you don't have it, then, like, what are we going to do?
I'm going to tell you right now, the Office Christmas episode that I'm going to pick is actually my favorite episode of The Office entirely.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think that's the one that I'm thinking about. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Probably.
That's for next week.
All right. Why don't you start us off with what your number 6 pick is?
All right. My number 6 pick, it's a really obscure, out of left field pick. You remember the show Grounded for Life?
I do remember that show. Yep.
Yeah. For me, it brings back nostalgia. It's one of a few shows that just like takes me back to coming home from school and watching it at ABC Family, because if I didn't watch it there, I probably wouldn't watch it at all.
Yeah. I had a friend in a fantasy football group. They posted a GIF from My Wife and Kids, and that was like that same time frame, same channel, that there was like these underdeveloped B-rated comedies that I thought were really good. Underdeveloped is a bad word, but underappreciated B-rated comedies, and Grounded for Life is one of them.
So Grounded for Life, for those of you who might not have watched it, is a show. It's about a family living in New York, and tonally they're a little bit dysfunctional. I'd say it's kind of on the same level of like Malcolm in the Middle as far as the family dynamics.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about is season 2, episode 7, called I Saw Daddy Hitting Santa Claus.
I don't remember this episode at all, so I'm intrigued what's going to happen.
All right, I'm going to try to give a quick rundown. So it's all about the dad, Sean, feuding with his dad, the grandpa, Walt, because Walt is dressed up as Santa Claus at the mall, and he tells their son, Henry, that he can get this toy that he wanted. I forget what it's called, like the Battle Driver. It's like a little car that you drive around. They live in downtown New York, and it's this little car thing you drive around, and it's got a big Nerf gun thing. You shoot at people, and it costs like $300. And so they had already told him no. They had gotten him to say like, no, I'm not going to get this present. And then all of a sudden, Grandpa Santa comes up and says, Santa's a yes man. I don't have to say no to any kids. And he like promises him this toy. Then later on, the dad, Sean, is dressed up as Joseph for one of those like live nativity scenes that the community's doing. And he gets interrupted by Santa driving by in this big parade where he's waving to everybody. And he gets fed up and throws a tomato, knocking Santa Claus down, starting an all-out elves versus the nativity scene brawl. And so then the little kid thinks that Santa's not going to come to his house because his dad angered Santa Claus. And then there's a B plot about the kind of shady Uncle Eddie with the other son, Jimmy, stealing a Christmas tree from a hospital. That's the kind of show we're in for. Right?
Yeah, it is. Man, the main actor from Grounded for Life, he's one of those guys that like you've seen him in movies. He pops up in so many different movies. Like, oh, I know that guy, but I dare you, not you, but I dare anyone else to remember his name.
He had a recurring role in Law and Order SVU for a while too.
Oh yeah. Oh, and he's on Gotham.
I think what's really cool about this is like the whole dynamic of like, you know, Walt is completely in the dynamic of, you know what, I'm a grandpa. I'm done being a dad. I don't have to do any of the non-fun stuff. I just get to sit down and tell all the kids yes, even though it's completely screwing over his own son and his wife by promising presents that are expensive that they don't want to buy their son. And then it's made worse with flashbacks because the dad flashes back to when he was a kid, and his dad just looks at him and says, like, no, you're not getting that toy. You're getting pants and a yo-yo, and that's all. And then now he's like, everybody gets all the presents. So it's like a little bit of like internal turmoil with that.
I don't know what it is about like those, because like George Lopez show is kind of that similar dynamic between like the parents and the kids, and it's just like the son is stuck in the middle. George Lopez being in that one, and then Sean in this one of like, you suck as a parent, but you're nice to your grandkids. Why are you so crappy?
And like throughout all of this, the mom, I forget her name, but whatever the mom's name is, she's just kind of like sitting back and letting it all happen. Like she's a little annoyed about the whole their kid wanting the present thing, but she just starts to say like, you guys are kind of being ridiculous about this. And it gets to the point where normally the son sneaks out and sees the grandpa come in as Santa Claus leaving presents. Well, then the dad's like, I'm going to lock him out and I'm going to be Santa. And then there's like a brawling Santa Clauses. And then the son, Henry, he just sits there. He's like, wait, I want to see how this plays out.
Was it as good of a fight as the Christmas fight in season 1 of Community between Anthony Michael Hall and because I think that was season 1, right? Yeah. No,
it was not as good of a fight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, is Community on your? I shouldn't ask you that. I shouldn't get ahead of myself. I purposely. Okay, you're gonna hate me. You might hate me. The Community Christmas episodes are okay. There wasn't any that I'm like, this would definitely make my list. There's none that really appealed to me. So
we might end up talking about Community at some point.
All right. Well, my number 6 is a show we've brought up before, but we really haven't talked at length about it. And that is Smallville. There was an episode have you ever seen the movie Family Man with Nicolas Cage?
No, I have not. Sorry.
So that's a really good Christmas movie that Angie and I watch every Christmas. And it's not all Christmas movie, or it's not all takes place in Christmas, but it's one that really focuses around Christmas, especially at the beginning, at the end. So on Christmas Eve, Nicolas Cage's character is kind of like this Scrooge type, and he gets a chance to see this glimpse of what would have happened if he married his college girlfriend and wouldn't have gone into like business and would have been, and so he goes from being like rich and successful in New York City to living in the suburbs of New York with a family and being kind of like middle class and having bills and trying to get by and, just being one of those working stiffs.
So kind of like the It's a Wonderful Life thing where you get to see what your life was like and you end up appreciating it.
Yeah, it really is. It's definitely like Family Man kind of takes that idea of both A Wonderful Life and kind of like A Christmas Carol and kind of like plays with both of those things of this New Year, this Christmas Eve thing that happens. So it's a really good story. I love it, and it really shows like the value of marriage and family even in the tough times. It's a great movie for that. And so Smallville kind of did that. they did that with Lex's character. There's a Christmas episode where he gets shot right at the beginning of the episode, and as he's laying bleeding out, his mom comes to him in like this dream state vision, and she's kind of like this, almost like a Ghost of Christmas Past type, and she's like, I'm gonna show you a life. You're standing at this pivotal moment, because this is in season 4 when Lex is running for Congress against Clark Kent's dad, and so he's like, do I like play dirty to try and win this Congress seat? And he has this opportunity to get like some dirt on Jonathan Kent and what he's going to do about it. And so his mom's like, you're at this junction where you can choose one of 2 options, and let me show you what your life is going to look like if you choose this option. Where he kind of like renounces his dad, and he renounces the path he's heading towards, and he actually gets married to Lana. And so it shows him what a life looks like if he's married to Lana, and like people love him. Jonathan Kent is like, he's finally he has a father figure, because his dad was just never that father figure for him. It was always about, you have to perform for me. You have to be successful. There's no room for love if you're not successful. So Jonathan Kent is accepting as that father figure. And it's this really nice, like quaint episode. And this comes at a time when Lex is really, really starting to embrace his dark side. And you're still kind of like, there's still enough hope left. There's still, even though Lex Luthor is a bad guy, there's still enough that he can come back and not be that character. Mm-hmm. And so to get to this moment where they stop and show you what this life could look like, what he could be, it was really nice. And that, as the episode goes on, you see something that happens that would be like, this is why you need money. This is why you need money. And he's like, well, that's more important to me. I need to get to this. And so like he makes a bad choice at the end, and it's sad for, it's like the what could have been. So it's a really good episode.
It's kind of like the reverse Wonderful Life, where like you see the good outcomes, like, no, I'm going to choose the bad one instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting take on that.
It is. If you've seen it, you know what's happening. If you haven't seen it, then it's, it's heartbreaking kind of to watch it. Even though that's naturally what has to happen for the story, but whatever. Yeah. It's still sad.
I never really got into Smallville. It's always been on my like, oh, I know this is a good show. I never really got into watching it.
Seasons 1 through 5 are fantastic, and seasons 6 through 10 have redeeming elements, but it feels so soap opera-y. And you kind of get to a point where it's like, I've made it this far into the show. I've got to just finish it out.
Well, and for you, didn't you say you had all the seasons? So you're not only going to finish it out, but you're going to buy all the seasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when we were at like season 6 and we had all these seasons, and they were just like, well, I guess we're going to buy season 7. It took us so long to open like seasons 8 through 10 out of its wrapping too. It's like, well, we still have this in wrapping 3 years later.
Yeah, I always had a thing where as soon as I bought it, I didn't like having DVDs that I hadn't watched. So for a while, I was like, when I buy it, I got to watch it at least once. All right, my number 2 is from a show we've mentioned. We haven't really talked about it that much, which is New Girl.
Nice.
And I know there's a few Christmas episodes. You might be surprised at my pick. I'm going with Santa, season 2, episode 11.
Okay, remind me what happens in it, because I love New Girl, and actually the only Christmas episode I remember, because I was trying to think, do I want to have a New Girl? It's I think the last Christmas episode where she's like, I just want to see snow. I want to have a good, whatever. And so Nick surprises her with a snowfall at the end of the episode, and there's one singer singing whatever that song.
Yeah.
If you've seen the episode, you know.
And in that episode, it's just Megan Fox doing the snow thing up top.
Yep, that's it.
No, season 2, episode 11, Santa. It's where they're all going to different Christmas parties. They hop from party to party, and there's kind of mini storylines going through them all. So you got the storyline of Jess, who's trying to avoid her ex-boyfriend Sam, because Sam had broken up with her. She had broken up with Sam because Sam just wanted a hookup, and now he wants relationships, and she doesn't believe him, so she's trying to avoid him. Schmidt's mad at Cece for breaking his heart or something. Honestly, that's the most boring part of the story, so I probably won't talk about that too much. Nick is dating this girl, Angie, and she's a stripper, and so he's trying to prove that he can be all wild and adventurous when he clearly cannot. It's Nick. Hello. And finally, the most inconsequential but my favorite, Winston. His whole thing is that he believes in Santa Claus, and he has a cranberry stuck in his ear. That's pretty much it. Any of that ring a bell for you?
That is very I remember the story of Sam and Jess. I don't remember a whole lot of the others, but I remember their back and forth.
Yeah, the funny thing about Jess is that she's so panicked. Like she doesn't want to take him back because she doesn't believe that he'll actually be in a real relationship. But she's also scared of confrontation. So she just keeps every time she sees him, she runs. Like, we're Irish goodbying, and she leaves. And the second party, he follows her there, and she tries to leave, but she keeps running into glass windows because she doesn't know which one's the actual opening.
That sounds like her.
And then Nick and Angie. So like I said, Nick is dating this girl Angie on a show a couple times.
Oh yeah, Olivia Munn.
Yeah. So he keeps trying to prove to her that he's like wild and adventurous sexually. And at one point they're at this Christmas party. They have this big Santa sleigh and reindeer display. And he's like, well, let's just go in the sleigh. And he tries his best at like sexy talk. And he's like, because I'll be your reindeer and I'll take your presents up in the sky. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything.
It's kind of like on Friends, Mike's sexy talk to Phoebe. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're not good at this.
Yeah, and it makes it less like vulgar. Like I think the storyline is about him trying to prove that he can do this, but it's not crazy inappropriate because he's so bad at it. And then that storyline I gotta just bring up at the end. Do you remember? This is gonna sound way more racy than it actually is. The triple lap dance.
I don't.
So at the end of the party, Nick's trying to make up with Angie because he had pissed her off, and then he decides, you know what? Play some music. He starts giving her a lap dance very awkwardly and terribly, and she's just laughing at him. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the stuff. And then she flips out on him, and then she starts giving him a lap dance. But what really brings it home is then Schmidt just taps her. It's like, you don't know what you're doing. Eye contact. And then Schmidt starts giving Nick a lap dance just to prove that he can do it better than the stripper. And of course, Nick pushes him out like, what are you doing? You are so dumb.
The more you talk about it, the more it like reminds me. It's such a weird like, oh, I don't remember. Then you say stuff like, oh yeah, I remember that now.
They managed to make a scene about lap dances be funny instead of being completely like just raunchy.
Yeah. New Girl's great. Those dynamics are so tremendous. And I love the stuff that they do for Jess, because I think it was the first season. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, there was a Christmas episode where it wasn't the first season where they take her to like this street with lights and no one has lights on, and they all start yelling like, "Turn on your lights!" And then like people are mad at them, but they do it.
Yeah, because that's when it was still just all about Jess. Whereas in this season, yeah, Jess has a big storyline, but they're able to let them all have something to do. And I still think with Winston, they probably in the writers' room were like, well, what are we gonna do with Winston? We already have 3 stories. So like he basically is just in the beginning of the episode, they're throwing cranberries at him because he believes in Santa Claus. And then throughout the whole episode, he's just like, what? What was that? What'd you say, though? I can't hear because I got a cranberry stuck in my ear. Like, that's 90% of his dialogue in the whole episode.
Oh, I love Winston. I want to see that actor in more stuff.
Oh, definitely. And at the very end, remember Jess decides that she believes in Sam and she wants to come back to her. So they go to the hospital. They have to pretend like they're carolers. So she starts singing "Oh Come All Ye Faithful" and gets everyone to join along, but no one knows the words and they're just mumbling.
All wrong.
But here's the thing, it's like they're all just mumbling like la 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 la, kind of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Except for Schmidt, who knows he doesn't know the words, but at one point you clearly hear him say David Hanukkah menorah.
Schmidt jar.
It's a good Christmas episode because they got the Christmas theme with all the different parties and the singing and the lights and the undertone of Santa Claus, but at the same time they're still able to progress their own stories.
Yeah, I can't argue with it because it's so hard to remember. Yeah, man, New Girl is one of those shows like I've seen a number of different times, but it's so hard to remember like seasons. Like Office, I've seen a ton, and I was like, oh, I know this arc. Or Smallville, I know like when those arcs happen. It's just hard to remember that.
New Girl's kind of more so in my mind now because I've been watching a little bit along with my wife, who's going through them when she can, and so. Earlier, when I knew this episode was coming up that we were going to talk about Christmas episodes, so I went through and I watched all the Christmas episodes, and they're good. I could have talked about a few of them, but this is the one that had so many lines, like the whole "I'm going to take your presents up in the sky," like that just made me laugh out loud.
I'm excited to tell you I think my number 2. I'm excited to tell you my number 2 one because that's the same way. It's hilarious. It's got all these lines as like when I heard them, they hit me just the right way every time.
Right. Well, hit me with your number 2.
All right, my number 2 is going to be it's a stretch, but it's a really great episode, and you might not even think of it as a Christmas episode because they did something with the show Lost, where when the plane crashed on Lost, it crashed on September 22nd, and so as the show progressed,
I know which episode you're doing.
Yep, as the show progressed, they kept track of the time progression, but it didn't line up with the actual time progression. So I mean, like in
It
season
wasn't very
2,
constant.
Yep. Thank you. So in season 2, it's like that's like 2 weeks after they had crashed, and really everyone was a year older, which is why Walt had to get out of the picture early on, because you're able to tell that this kid isn't aging in like 3 weeks' time when it's been like actually 3 years. So
I have a lot of thoughts about Walt for a different podcast.
so by the time Christmas hits, they realize where it's at in the middle of season 4, and that's in an episode called The Constant. So what season 4 was about, and season 3 was the weakest season, and season 4 was when it started to get its momentum back.
What?
Yeah.
What did you just say?
Season 3 of Lost was its weakest season.
No.
It was.
Okay, here's the thing. The first third of season 3, yes, but the last 2/3 made up for it. Because the finale of season 3 is my all-time favorite episode.
Yes, absolutely. The ending, it ended on a strong note, but I would say the first half of season 3. Another episode of season 3 that I love is a filler episode, the one with Hurley in the van. Love that episode. That's a tremendous,
great episode.
That is the best filler episode of any show I've ever seen. All right. But apart from that, the arcs of season 3 were kind of crappy, and season 4 starts to turn it around, even though some of the characters like Jack and Kate and them, their arc kind of sucks because it's like, we're all waiting on an island for the freighter people to pick us up. And that's their whole arc for the entire season. And so the things that are most interesting about season 4 all have to do with these guys on the freighter, because this freighter shows up and they make contact with it from the island, and they're like, we're finally rescued. There's a boat here. The boat's going to take us away. And then they realize that the freighter, there's some things that are sketchy about it, and not everyone on there is a good guy. And so when the helicopter takes Saeed and Desmond off of the island, they have to pass through like this temporal sort of vortex, because there's kind of like this shield around the island that some people respond negatively to, and Desmond was one of those. So once they pass through this little barrier, all of a sudden his brain flashes back to like 1991 or whatever, and this is in like 2006. His brain flashes back like 15 years, and all of a sudden
1996 is when he flashed back to, and the present is 2004.
Thank you. Oh, of course. Yeah. So 8 years, whatever. So he flashes back 8 years. And then when he flashes back onto the helicopter, he thinks that it's still like 1996. He's like, where am I? I don't know who you are. And so the only one who knows what's going on is back on the island, Daniel Faraday. He knows what's going on. He sees that. And like when they get to the freighter, you know, they're like, oh, we've got to get you fixed. We've got to figure out, because this madness has happened to other crew members. So there's other people that are experiencing this. And so there's kind of this panic. It's a very interesting. So I'm going to get to the Christmas part at the end of the episode, because that's like one of the best lost moments is what happens at the end of the episode.
True, but I mean, it's really only Christmassy because it happens on Christmas and there's a Christmas tree. But it's a good episode, so go ahead.
Hey, if I can argue about Die Hard being a Christmas movie, I can argue about this being a Christmas episode. So the plot that's really interesting about this is like it's a unique way to use the flashback formula, because by season 4 they're doing flash forwards, and this one is a flashback, but it's not a true flashback because it's actually his brain time traveling. So you get to see a little bit of him in 96 and a little bit of him in 2004, and you see some more stuff that tells about his backstory, but at the same time you get to see what Daniel Faraday was doing off the island in 1996, and they connect in 96, and so they've met before. So now you know Faraday has met this guy in the past, and so there's like this really cool connection between these two characters that lasts for the rest of the seasons, that there's just kind of this odd connection that they have.
It also sets up the importance of the fact about how special Desmond is, in the fact that like the time rules don't apply to Desmond, and he can do things and like jump between realities, whether he's trying to or not, that other characters can't, which sets up his importance in the overall arc of the show. Because at the end of season 4, some of the characters, including Desmond, get off the island. And then for the last 2 seasons, Desmond is still technically a main character, but he's more like a recurring character. He's barely in season 5, and he's only in like a little bit of season 6 too. But it's worth it because he ends up being a really integral part of the story at the very end. And it kind of this hints at it right here with he's special.
Yeah. And that's really cool about his character, too, because, like, Charles Widmore didn't view him as special, which is why he didn't want him ending up with Penny. And then, like, really come to find out he actually is special, but it's a special that you might not really want because the island is demanding him to be where he needs to be. Yeah. So it really is great for lore of the show, as you hinted at, and is really cool in that dynamic. But then it also has this emotional dynamic that really hits at the end of the episode that, as I said, was one of the best moments because he in 96, he had just broken up with Penny because of his cowardice, because he was afraid of not being enough for her. And so after he had just broken up with her, like he's starting to realize she's going to be a constant because he needs to have a constant, something that is both in 96 and in 2004 that can anchor him. So he needs to be able to get a hold of Penny, who is obviously not on the island or not on the freighter. So they're able to fix the phone, the radio stuff, and be able to make a call out to her. And so in 96, he shows up to Penny. He's like, I'm going to call you in 8 years. I know it doesn't make any sense, but do not change this phone number. I'm going to call you in 8 years on this phone number. And she's like, promise me you'll do that. And so it gets to 2004. And obviously when she's actually looking for him and her heart has changed because she's mad at him in 96 and now 2004, all she wants is to find him. So he calls her Christmas Eve in 2004. And the phone call that they have is such a touching moment. And they're both like crying and they're both like, no matter what, I'll find you. We'll connect again. And, you know, it's so heartwarming. And it just anchors the show at the end. It's like, it's the Christmas fuzzies, you know?
Yeah. It takes the emotional connection at the end of a Hallmark movie, but instead of all the crappy Hallmark movie, you replace it with a good episode of television. And I know shots fired at people who love Hallmark movies, but you know I'm right.
It's okay to take shots at people who like Hallmark movies because they've chose this lot in life. They like Hallmark movies. That's what you get.
Yeah, I know at least one of our listeners likes Hallmark movies. So sorry, Laura.
She's like, I'm done. I'm not going to listen to these guys anymore. I don't have to take this abuse.
My number 1 or number 3.
Number 4.
I'm bad at numbers. Whatever. The next one.
Math.
The last one for this episode for me. So, Matt, the other day you and I were texting back and forth about our picks, and I was trying not to give away what my picks are. You said that you left off Community because you were guessing that I had the Claymation episode of Community on my list.
Yes.
I do not, but I do have a Christmas episode from Community as my pick.
Glee?
No, sorry.
Oh, that's the only Christmas episode to me that's worth its salt because that episode has the best line of the series. So Glee like takes over in Community and like all of them are, it's like a hypnotizing thing. Yeah. And so all of them, when they hear music, they slowly get like hypnotized one by one to join Glee. And then Britta's like, I want to do this too. And like the guy who's kind of in charge of this, the Glee professor, is like, well, we're just going to have you in the background as a tree or something like that. Abed is the only one who's not influenced by that. So he's like, well, we need to save all of my friends, so we're going to let Britta be front and center and be the solo. And so she comes out after they do like this great intro for like this performance, and everyone at the school is there, and like they're all sounding good right off the bat. Britta comes out, and she's just terrible. And Dean is sitting in the front row, and he looks at his program, and he goes, oh, Britta's in this? I just loved it. His disappointment at Britta being there was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. That is a good episode, and I considered it. But for me, and you almost ruined it earlier in this episode, it is the season 1 Christmas episode. Season 1, episode 12, Comparative Religion, which for me, anytime I'm going to watch a batch of Christmas episodes, sometimes I'll do this in December. I'm like, I'm just going to watch Christmas episodes of various shows. I always start with this episode. And so there's really 2 main things going on in this episode. Jeff gets into a fight with a bully named Mike, who's played by Anthony Michael Hall, because the bully was mean to Abed. And then Jeff got in his face to defend Abed. And so now they're going to fight. And it's just basically 2 egomaniacs who are trying to prove how manly they are. And then while that's going on, Shirley is dealing with the first Christmas since her husband left her, so she doesn't really have a family. So she's trying to force the study group to be her family, and she's really having a hard time because she finds out that none of them are Christian. They all have different religions. She's trying to force everybody to do Christmas her way. So you got Shirley's party and Jeff's fight going on simultaneously. One thing that's interesting, though, the whole fight was based on Jeff thinking he needs to stand up for Abed, thinking that Abed's helpless. I don't think he needed to stand up for Abed. Abed was fine.
Yeah. I like the line in season 1 when they're trying to like hook Abed. I think maybe it's season 2, but they're trying to hook Abed up with someone, and like he's doing like all these things to try and like be romantic.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why? At the end of the episode, they realize like he was just doing that to please them. They're like, well, why were you doing all that? Why were you changing who you are? And he's like, well, when you have friends, then what was his line? It was like really well put. Now I forgot it.
Well, he said, I got self-esteem coming out my butt. I think when you know who you are, changing for other people isn't such a big deal.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because the guy was being mean to Abed over some cookies, but he was, jabbing kind of right back at him, like not being snarky, but just holding his own. Abed has been shown to be a good athlete. I don't think Abed would have fought this guy back. He would have just ducked and got out of the way. Even, when you get into the fight at the end, because spoiler alert, at the end, the big, let's all come together as a family moment is let's all come together and fight these bullies. You never actually see Abed fight. I was watching it. Everyone gets in the fight. Abed does some like karate poses near people, and then he's like running around. You never see him actually punch or fight anybody. But of course, at the end, for the illusion that they're going for when they're all singing and they're all beat up, he has like a ripped shirt or something like that. But even in the fight, he didn't need to fight. He was just happy to be there.
And I could see Abed at the end of it to fit in with all of them, like ripping his shirt as like, we all got in a fight.
Definitely. There's also an undertone in this. This is before Pierce became a full villain. This is where Pierce was still just dumb and misguided, but he really wanted to be like a father figure. So he's trying to show Jeff like, you need to fight people. A punch to the face is what makes you a man. He's trying to like and be this father figure to him. And at the end, he punched Jeff as like a thank you. And then Jeff's like, yeah, I got punched like 4 times before you did that, but thanks.
I think this is also the episode when like Shirley finds out that Annie's Jewish. And I think this is the episode with a kind of funny running line where Shirley's like, you're a Jew? And Annie's like, maybe you should say the full word. And so later in the episode, when Pierce is addressing her, he's like, he says something to her and calls her Jew, and she just looks at him and is like, say the full word.
This also starts the runner it'll be for the whole show of Pierce thinking he's a Buddhist, but he's just in a weird cult.
Oh yeah. A 6th level laser lotus.
Yep. But just because you asked him about it being weird, you're now knocked him down to level 5.
Of course.
There's also 2 different lines in the show that really kill me. One is, so Jeff has decided he's going to fight, and Shirley is laying on some mom guilt, being like, if you go fight, then I'm disappointed in you and you can't come to my party. So pretty much everybody else is helping Jeff prepare for the fight. And Shirley comes in, and Troy tries to cover him for him. He's like, oh, we were just preparing for the fight. And then turns to Jeff, and it's just in the way that Donald Glover can do a line. He says, I couldn't think of another word.
That is funny. That's a good line.
And also, right before Jeff shows up to fight the guy, you see the bully Mike with his cronies, his other bully friends. He's like, yeah, if they don't show up, we're definitely going to Applebee's, right?
I like that, too, that's played by Anthony Michael Hall from at Breakfast Club, being like the nerdy kid. And pretty much everything he was in the 80s. He was the nerdy kid. And now he gets to be the bully at the school and community.
And they bring him back at least one more time.
They do, yeah.
I forget what episode it was. Was that the Meow Meow Beans episode or one of the paintball episodes?
I don't remember. I thought it was actually a couple of times. Not a ton, but I think he was in there a few times after. Yeah.
He's one of those guys, obviously we don't need to see him. It's a school. There's other classes going on. But he can pop in every now and be like, oh, yeah, I remember him.
Yep. This would have been the Anthony Michael Hall thing. That would have been a good trivia question of, like, the bullies played by, famous 80s actor. Because we'd forgotten to do a trivia one beforehand. Oh, so when we get there.
Already. Yeah, I got
perfect.
one.
See, you're so prepared.
Yeah. And one more thing about this. So at the end, so we get into the fight. It's interesting to see the different things about fighting. So another little runner throughout the whole episode, Britta keeps saying how men fighting is just because they're gay and they want to grope each other. Like she's just making fun of Jeff the whole time. But did you notice she's saying that, but when they fight, she goes and immediately starts fighting with the girl bully?
Yep. Oh, Britta, she really is the worst.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, everyone in that episode of the LT, they keep saying it's Christmas. It's December 10th. Which, hey, behind the scene, we're recording this on December 10th.
Oh my gosh, look at that. See, guys, it's kismet. It was meant to be. All right, so my final episode, number 4 is, again, a show we haven't talked about yet. And speaking of the community that had John Goodman throughout season 3, this episode also had a special guest appearance by John Goodman. And by guest appearance, I mean he was the villain of the episode. So the show is Futurama. I don't know if you've ever watched episodes of Futurama. But
Wait, was he Robot Santa?
He was Robot Santa. Yep. I don't know if he was recurring, but at least the first appearance of Robot Santa, he was.
I haven't watched this episode in a long time, and I was considering putting it on my list for next week.
Well, too late. It is Xmas Story. I'm pretty sure it's season 2. And so it's the first appearance of Robot Santa, who does become a recurring character in other Christmas episodes. And so Futurama takes place in year 3000. Fry was someone from year 2000. He gets frozen in a cryogenics tube for 1,000 years. He pops up in year 3000, and he is a fish out of water, and that's a lot of the jokes.
Out of all the adult animated shows, Futurama is my favorite.
It's really good. It's hard to know which is better between Futurama and Simpsons. Simpsons has better episodes at points, but it also has a lot of bad episodes by this point too. So
also, Simpsons is so daunting to watch because all of Simpsons is 30 years and counting, whereas like there's less than 10 years of Futurama.
Yeah. I mean, how many times did Futurama get canceled and re-picked back up?
I don't know, like, was it twice?
It was a couple times. Yeah. But season 2, back when it was still on Fox, before it got canceled the first time, we come up to Xmas Story. And so in the future, that Christmas is no longer called Christmas, it's called Xmas, and there's some of the same things that they celebrate, although it's not really a time that you celebrate, because in like year 2800 something, one of the corporations created a robot Santa and set him with naughty and nice parameters, and his parameters were set so high that he viewed everyone as naughty, and so because of that, he hunts them down, and he is rather dangerous. And so the episode is kind of the A plot is that Robot Santa coming at the end, but it starts off with Fry and Leela, and Fry is complaining because he's all alone at Christmas and not realizing that Leela has always felt alone because she's an orphan, and so she is kind of mad at Fry because he's being selfish and it's like all about me when she's also suffering. So he feels bad. He goes out to get a gift, and he's out late, and you can't be out late on Christmas Eve because Robot Santa comes there. And so, they need to get saved off of the streets and come back to the Planet Express and hunker down for the night. Mm-hmm. So this episode is really funny. There's a lot of great jokes in it. I counted 3. I watched just like a couple days ago. I counted 3 specific satires that they do. One of the Charlie Brown Christmas, one of Cool Runnings, and one of The Gift of the Magi. And the Charlie Brown one was the funniest by far. They start off at a ski slope, and Bender's skiing, and someone's like, "Hey, you're going off the trail." He's like, "Bite my frozen metal butt." And then as he's yelling at him, he goes off a cliff. And then it cuts to all these kids skating on an ice rink, just like in time, just like it's the Charlie Brown. And it's like playing the Charlie Brown piano, and it's all nice and smooth. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Bender falls and crashes through the ice, and it breaks, and all the kids fall in, and they're all like screaming as they're in the water.
Well, Bender's one of those characters who's allowed to ruin things like that, and it doesn't ruin the show.
He is. He's such a terrible. Like, he bumps into Robot Santa. So that's the B plot, is him going to a robot soup kitchen because he sees they're giving out free food. So he poses like he's a homeless person, and he has like 7 or 8 bowls of like the alcoholic soup or whatever it is that they're going to feed the robots. And like they're like, oh, for the first year we've actually run out. And he's like, well, let me go see if I can get more free stuff. So he takes some of the homeless robots with him, and they go to other places and try and get more free things. And then when he bumps into Robot Santa, Robot Santa's like, Bender, you've been naughty. And he's like, it wasn't me, it was this kid. And it was like this like Tiny Tim type kid who got like the crutch. And he's like, are you framing an orphan child? He's like, I've got to add this to the list. And he starts like writing it down. And while he's writing it, he's taking so long, they all just kind of sneak away and run off.
Yeah, I was going to rewatch. I believe I have this episode on DVD. I have to check what seasons I have. I was going to rewatch that for next week, so it's not fresh in my mind. But as you're saying it, some of these scenes come back to my mind.
Yeah. I also like when he finally catches up with them at the end, and he's like, you've all been really naughty. Except for you, Zoidberg. Here's a pogo stick. And then Zoidberg is like hopping around in the background while he's ready to kill all of them.
Of course, Zoidberg's the good one.
He is.
Am I correct in remembering, didn't they do a parody song of Santa Claus is coming to town, but it's like, you better hide because Santa Claus will kill you and stuff like that?
Yeah, and that was okay. The best song that Futurama did was the Limbo song when Hermes was the bureaucrat and having to organize everything.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That was tremendous.
I can still probably play that song in my head.
I am Bender, please insert girder.
Yep. I used to have that song on my iTunes. I still might. I have an iTunes that I haven't looked at in forever because it's iTunes.
Yep, that's fair. Apologies for those listening on iTunes, which we are now on.
Well, I listen to podcasts on iTunes. I mean, as far as my own personal music on my iTunes player.
Yes, same here. I use Spotify because I'm awesome.
Gotcha. But you can listen to us on both.
You can. Da-da. Some of you guys are already listening to us on there, so you already know this. All
right, so there's our top 3 picks, or our first 3 picks.
Number 4 through 6.
That's right. I can promise that I'll probably have an Office one on mine next week, and I'll see what else I can figure out.
I can promise with complete certainty that there will be an Office one on mine. None of this might stuff. It is for sure on my list.
Yeah. Should we jump into the trivia?
We shall. We had 2 last week.
First of all, before we get into it, let's go to the answers first.
All right.
I interrupted you, and I'm going to uninterrupt you.
I retract my my interruption. So mine was Greg Daniels, show creator and writer on the show as well. He got his start in writing a couple different shows, including Saturday Night Live, but went on to a long-running show that they also have Easter egg to in the Office. And that was, we didn't have anyone who commented on it, but that was The Simpsons, as you can tell from the Homer Simpson doll that you see parked around the office every now and then. They use that as kind of a tribute to his time on The Simpsons.
We actually did have a correct answer to that. My friend Mike texted me, same Mike from before who got the answer right. He got both of our trivia questions correct.
Nice. Sorry, Mike, I was too quick to say no one got it.
And also, I feel like we have to say this. My brother-in-law, Paul, did get our first trivia question right about Mike Schur, but then ruined it by defending Ted Mosby.
Yeah, I mean, you don't defend Ted Mosby.
And then my trivia question was what actor from The Office also was the showrunner for a while, which is Paul Lieberstein, who played Toby.
Toby!
Who, he didn't mind being an actor on the show to the best of my knowledge, but he always preferred writing, which is why they had Toby go to Costa Rica and go to jury duty and miss out on beach games and all this stuff. It's just anytime there's something that happened, it's because they wanted him to be in the writer's room or producing the show.
And Paul Lieberstein also really didn't like the character. Like, he wouldn't be friends with the character of Toby. So he was, like, so hard on that character and relish in the fact of, like, making him a whipping boy for the show.
All right. So my trivia actually combines 2 of the shows that I talked about. So I'm not sure if you know this, Matt. One of the characters in Grounded for Life was the kind of the sleazebag Uncle Eddie. The actor who played Uncle Eddie, Sean Corrigan, I think is his name, was also a recurring character in at least 2 episodes of Community. So who did Uncle Eddie from Grounded for Life play in Community?
I need to even see his face. And then
once you see his face, you'll know.
Maybe I'm spelling Sean Corrigan incorrectly.
S-E-A-N.
Well, what is it?
S-E-A-N.
I'm spelling Sean right.
Oh. there's multiple ways to spell Sean.
Spell Sean. Gosh.
Let me see if that's actually. Oh, you know what? My retraction. His name is Kevin Corrigan.
Oh, yeah, that guy. Really? That's funny.
So if you know who Kevin Corrigan from Grounded for Life played on Community.
So I'm not a moron. Get off me.
No.
Gosh. Well, hey, let us know, what are some of your favorite Christmas episodes. My wife was saying there's one episode of Everybody Loves Raymond that we still will quote to this day, where Ray is trying to, I think it's like in the first season, where it's like Ray is trying to get sex with his wife, and it's like kind of Christmas time. He's like, I never know when's the good time to initiate, all that sort of stuff. And she's like, well, it's just, random stuff. You're helping out, around the house, you're helping with the kids, whatever. And so like there's one time when he's trying to quote unquote woo her, and just the way he does it is like, he's like, you better watch out. You better watch out. You better watch out. You better watch out. You better watch out.
That was a great show.
It's a really good show. It's super corny, but it's like, it's so funny. I don't know why that makes us laugh so much. Everyone Loves Raymond. It's a great show. I'm sure we'll talk about it more at some point. But that is all the time for us tonight. Have a wonderful Christmas. I hope you guys listen to us next week. We are going to enjoy Christmas with our families, and we're also going to enjoy these Christmas episodes. Yeah. So until next time, I am Matt.
And I'm Brian.
Just reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.